All right, everybody, welcome to the Late to Work podcast. Today we are talking about the Zachary Latham trial. Um, Today, for some reason, the trial started really late today, so there was only a couple hours of live trial that I was able to watch. I'm going to go real quick. I'm going to go ahead and play the incident that we are talking about.
I promise you, you better back up because you're not going to like what's coming out. I promise you. No. No. Back out. Back up. Babe! Get off of my property.
Oh, you got his out of my property.
Get off the property. Get off of the property!
That is the incident that is in question right now. That was his neighbors coming and attacking him basically on his property. So today, or the other day, actually, I found footage of Gage Durham. That was one of the sons that was involved in the attack. I found his testimony, and today, basically, the whole day consisted of the medical examiner's testimony. And so I'll be playing some of that. It's kind of interesting, some things I found out, but all right, so I'm going to go ahead and play this is the incident. This is the prosecution cross-examining Gage Durham.
And my dad.
And can you describe the altercation?
Zach swung the taser and the knife at my brother, and Zach fell back into the garage, and my brother followed him, and behind him was my dad, Moses, and Dylan, and then I came in after everyone else, and they were fighting. Billy, Moses, and Zach were on the ground in between the two cars, and at that point I had gotten into the garage, and Dylan was behind, like in the back of the garage, going after the same thing. So I tried to get Dylan off of Billy and my dad, and at that point there was already blood everywhere, and at the time I didn't know who was bleeding because I didn't really see any of the stabbings. I got Dylan off of me. He had put me in the headlock, and I pushed him off. I turned around and was trying to get Billy and Zach to split up, so I kicked Zach, and everyone kind of split up, and Dylan was outside.
I was kind of wondering why this guy hasn't gotten any charges. He just said I kicked Zach, and remember, they were on Zach's property.
And my dad had walked outside, and then we just all walked out.
Let's break this down a little bit. So, when the fight first started, that was initially between which people?
Billy and Zach.
And then who got involved next?
My dad.
And then
Then it was.
where did you see it progress?
Reminder, Zach is the guy in the bottom right of the screen in the suit. He is on trial for manslaughter, second degree. The guy testifying right now, his father is the one that was killed in the incident. They basically attacked Zach on his own property, and Zach defended himself and stabbed the father to death. And this is the son that was involved testifying. He was only 17 at the time. Now he's 19.
All in the garage, right in between the two cars.
And when did how far behind your dad and your brother were you in entering the garage?
Not a couple seconds.
And how did you get to the back of the garage?
I don't really remember. I kind of went straight through the middle where the fight was happening.
And when you were in the fight, Was it all located to the garage, or did you see somebody go in the house?
I saw Zach try to get into the house and scream for help, but I don't remember.
That's powerful testimony right there. I heard Zach try to get into his own house and he was screaming for help. That kind of tells me that Zach did try to retreat.
Him ever making it inside the house.
Did you ever go into the house?
No.
Did you see Billy ever go into the house?
No.
Did you see your dad ever go into the house?
No.
So you're in the garage, and who are you in this altercation with?
Dylan.
And how did that begin?
I saw him like going after Billy, who was already laying on the ground in a headlock from Moses. So I pushed him away, and then he put me in a headlock. So then I punched him, and he stepped back.
Powerful testimony. So, yeah, I'm going to jump into it again. I wonder why he didn't get any charges. There's literally video footage of him going onto Zach's property and attacking him. I could be wrong. He may have gotten charges. I could be wrong. But okay, I'm going to jump in and go ahead and play this Gage, the same gentleman that was just in that video. I'm going to play the defense cross-examining him. And I believe there's some power. The video footage is not very good because it was hard to find, but it was some powerful testimony on basically it looked good for Zach.
Zach.
Direct examination for you now.
Got on your bikes and you drove down to Zach's home.
Yes.
It was about 5 houses away.
Yes.
You arrived first, right?
Yeah. Me and Billy.
And Billy came up behind you.
Yeah. Well, we were right together.
When Billy arrived, you'd already been talking to Sarah.
Yeah.
And Sarah had been warning you to leave the property, to go.
As she just said, we're not going to like what Zach has coming out.
So it's your testimony that that you were not told to leave the property.
Not that I remember.
Who's that?
That's me.
I promise you, you better back up because you're not gonna like what's coming out.
Let me ask you again, were you warned to back up and leave the property?
Yeah, I was sworn to back up.
I promise you.
And who's that?
That's my brother.
Okay.
No. No.
At this point,
There comes their dad in the truck rolling up.
you asked Sarah if Zach was going to pull a gun out on you,
Yes.
right? And she told you no, right?
Yeah.
You didn't believe her. You thought he was going to pull out a gun.
Yeah.
You still did not leave the property. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You knew you were not allowed on that property, right?
Yes.
I mean, end of conversation. You knew you weren't allowed on that property, and he still went on Zach's property.
It was a private residence, and you were not welcome there.
Yes.
Your father knew that he was not welcome there, and he had been asked to leave.
Yes.
Billy knew he was not welcome there, and he had been asked to leave.
Yes.
And as you've already testified, Billy was there with your father with the purpose of physically confronting Zach.
Once we arrived, yeah.
At some point, after that footage ended, your brother came up and made sort of a gesture like he was going to be punching Zach, right?
Yeah.
And it was at that time that Zach swung the knife for taser.
Yeah.
At that point, Zach swung the knife after he admittedly said they went on the property with the intentions of hurting him.
And he did not make contact with your brother.
No.
And at that point, your dad charged Zach and continued far back into the garage.
Yeah.
And you and Billy joined in this physical confrontation.
Yeah, as well as Moses and Dylan.
You threw punches. You've already testified that you got to verbally respond so that it records, just so you know.
Okay.
So you threw punches.
Yes.
You already testified that you at least on one occasion kicked Zach.
Yes.
You kicked him in the head on his property. Why is he not getting any charges? Remind me.
You, in fact, even stomped on Zach at some points.
Yes.
Your father at one point had Zach in a chokehold.
Yeah.
Your father started to exit the garage at one point and then turned around and joined back in the attack, right?
Yes, because Billy was in a headlock by Moses.
And still, you didn't leave the property.
No.
And you told us that Zach actually made attempts to get into the house.
Yes.
And Zach was screaming for help.
Yes.
We played some of his direct.
Zach was screaming for help and tried to get away. I mean, that's powerful testimony on the defense's behalf. I mean, right there, it kind of just sums it all up. There is a good argument that they're saying that Zach was luring them onto the property so that he could do that. And that is, I mean, you can't do that. You can't lure somebody onto your property so you can kill them. So that's basically the prosecution's only that's their only angle I think they can take, is that he lured them onto the property. Okay, so I'm going to play. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but the dad pulled up in the dad right here. The dad pulls up in the truck right there. That's the dad pulling up in the truck. So with that in mind, let's listen to the toxicology report.
Mr. William T. Durham Jr. went to the hospital first, is that right?
Yes.
Well, little technical difficulties. Let me.
Stab wound 1, I believe.
No.
You indicated earlier that there's generally samples of bodily fluids sent for analysis.
Yes.
Was a sample of Mr. Durham's blood sent for toxicology?
Yes, it was.
Was there anything relevant regarding those results that would have impacted on your opinion regarding the cause or manner of death?
Again, referring to S34 on the toxicology page. Now, I don't think the finding of ethanol in his blood affected his cause of death or manner of death.
After you concluded the examination and received the reports of additional procedures, were you able to reach an opinion about the cause of death of Mr. Durham?
Yes, I was.
And what was that determination?
Sharp force injuries of torso, that's the trunk, chest, abdomen, and back, and the right upper extremity.
So the right upper extremity, that refers to the deep gaping incised wound to the right arm?
That's correct.
The wound to the chest that was under the arm, stab wound 1, I believe, is what you
Yes.
determined it as. Would that, in and of itself, independent of any other injuries, have caused Mr. Durham's death?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to replay this one. This is
You look at the toxicology report, and the hospital blood indicates blood alcohol content of 0.10. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then there's femoral blood alcohol content, that's 0.084. Is that right?
Correct.
So
so he pulled up driving his truck, and he was legally too intoxicated to drive. You know, I don't know if that plays much into it, but that can show a little bit about his mindset. And he's a corrections officer. He's over here working inside the prisons and jails, and he's over here driving while intoxicated. I don't know. I don't like that one bit. Anyways, So that is a little bit of the toxicology report. So I don't know if you remember in the last video, they were talking about the stab wound to the arm. Here's a video of the error that the EMTs made. They put the tourniquet on the right arm when the wound was on the left arm.
There's an indication there that there was, upon EMS arrival, a tourniquet that had been applied to Mr. Dorham's right arm.
Okay. I think they made an error. They says patient has uncontrolled bleeding from the left arm. It was the right arm.
Right. So in terms
I mean, vice versa. I had it backwards.
of the medical attention that was received to the arm that had the deep gaping incised wound, when the EMS responded, there was one tourniquet applied.
Yes, according to this.
And then there was also the need for a second tourniquet.
Yes.
And that second tourniquet was applied because the first tourniquet wasn't sufficient enough.
That's what it implies reading this.
Now, going back to your earlier opinion on direct examination, well, actually, Mr. Perry suggested that it was because of this medical intervention that the bleeding had stopped, correct?
Correct.
Now, what if there was no medical intervention to the wound that was on his right arm? Would the blood loss associated from that wound alone have been sufficient enough to cause Mr. Dorham's death?
Yes.
That must have been a gnarly cut to the arm if it was sufficient to cause his death. Anyways, let's see what this video is.
Undetermined, is that right?
Correct.
That would refer to the manner of death. And it's almost a box that you would check off: natural, accidental, suicide, homicide, undetermined. Is that right?
This is the medical examiner talking about how he checked the box of this incident being a homicide and why.
Right?
Correct.
So you wouldn't know. You're just making a medical determination, is that correct?
That's correct.
You're not making a legal, under the 2C code, determination of death, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so you wouldn't know anything about whether or not William T. Durham Jr. Sustained injuries while trespassing upon my
Objection.
client's property, right?
That's the objection.
Relevance?
Overruled. Cross-examination, overruled.
So you wouldn't know whether or not William T. Durham sustained injuries while trespassing upon my client's property, is that right? Mr. Latham's property?
Correct.
You wouldn't know whether William T. Durham Jr. sustained his injuries while committing an assault against my client, is that right?
No, I don't know the circumstances of that.
So you wouldn't know whether or not Mr. Latham was in the process of defending himself against an attack from William T. Durham, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So you're just checking the box, homicide, a death caused by another person, right?
Correct.
For medical purposes, for your purposes. Okay.
Yeah, so basically that was the defense kind of trying to argue against the fact that he checked off the box homicide. It has nothing to do with the circumstances. That's just a medical. He did that for medical reasons. And then here is him defining the word homicide.
I have no further questions at this time. Would that have been serious enough to cause the death of Mr. Durham?
It could have.
Did you also reach a conclusion regarding the manner of death?
Yes, I did.
And what was that determination?
Homicide.
Medically speaking, what is a homicide?
It's a violent death caused by the actions of another person, like, to you or against you.
Judge, I have no further questions at this time.
All right. That is basically all I have as far as the trial coverage goes. I just want to note, so I believe Zachary was out on bond and then this happened.
Later, man just seems to want trouble because even after this incident, I mean, think about this, after he has killed somebody, regardless of whether the killing was justified or not justified. He took another man's life, so we know that much. And then this is in May of 2020. Fast forward to February of 2021, not even a year later. He finds himself picking up aggravated assault charges where he's threatening a teenager, again, in a vehicle confrontation, a 17-year-old motorist. And Latham points at him. It turned out to be a pellet gun, but it looked like an AK-47, and pointed it at him and tried to ram that young man's vehicle after they got into a dispute.
I mean, that's crazy. You're on bond basically for killing a man. Whether it was, like she said, whether it was justified or not, you literally tried to ram a 17-year-old kid off the road. So clearly this guy has a couple problems. It said he was emancipated at 16. So I don't know, maybe he just had a tough childhood and is literally drawn to these sticky situations. Anyways, that's about all I got for the first and second day of trial. Late to work, subscribe, check me out. I'll have another episode coming soon, and also we'll be covering the couple other trials that are going on right now. I have a couple clips from the Lori Val, Chad Daybell case. Those two are insane, crazy. So stay tuned.